Laura's journey continues. The forest behind her darkened with distance, its memories fading like mist at morning's edge. Each step away from Ivy and her stories felt like peeling away layers of herself, stories she had once believed were fixed in time. Ahead, the narrow path curved gently into the quiet embrace of a ruined orchard, gnarled trees standing like forgotten sentinels, their fruit long gone, their shadows long and soft. The grass here whispered instead of speaking. A strange calm wrapped around her shoulders like a shawl. Laura paused. Something unseen stirred. The watcher? This presence felt different. Less silent protector, more like a listener. As if the land itself was holding its breath, waiting not to guide her but to hear her. And for the first time in days Laura spoke, not aloud but inwardly, a voice from her soul. I'm not who I was. I carry echoes. But I am still becoming. In that moment the wind shifted, drawing her gaze to a narrow opening between the trees, where the light changed color, brighter but warmer. Not sunlight. Not fire. A memory. Or something yet to be lived. She stepped forward. As Laura walked in silence, the stories were not hers and yet, they were. Pieces of her soul scattered across different lives. Laura wondered, are these stories true? They're not finished. None of them. Including yours. The wind stirred. Overhead the sky turned the color of ink. And far above them, faint as a whisper, the eye opened. The man in the tower. Laura had walked for what felt like hours. The path beneath her stitched together by silence and soft questions. Then Laura stopped before a great stone structure. A tower, not high but dense. Covered in ivy, the windows were sealed from the inside and there was no visible door. Laura placed her hand upon the wall and whispered. He never left this place, yet he traveled farther than most ever dared. The wall shivered, then parted. Laura stepped through. Inside sat a man on a wooden stool in the center of a vast, windowless room. Thin with eyes too sharp for someone so still. Books were piled around him in spirals. Diagrams, drawings and riddles were carved into the stone. A mind overflowing, yet utterly enclosed. He looked up. Not startled. Not angry. Are you the interruption? He asked. Laura hesitated. No, she said. I'm the mirror. He frowned, then smiled. Just barely. His name was Elias. Elias had once been a boy of wonder. He questioned everything. The stars above. The very breath he breathed. His thoughts. He believed truth could be grasped. If only he read enough, meditated long enough, understood deeply enough. But slowly the pursuit of clarity became an obsession. He stopped asking why and only asked how. He stopped listening. He stopped walking. Have your thoughts become your obsession? Are you still moving forward? Are you still listening? Do you still believe in the things unseen? Elias built a mental labyrinth so elaborate that even he no longer knew which thoughts were his and which were the echoes of others. Every answer led to a deeper hall of mirrors. He mistook complexity for wisdom. He wore cynicism like armor. If I could just solve the puzzle of existence, he once whispered to the eye that watched from his ceiling, then I would be free. But the eye did not blink. It watched. And Elias mistook silence for condemnation. Now, standing before him, Laura felt no judgment. No need to fix him. She only offered this. You are not your conclusions. You are not even your thoughts. You are the space between them. Elias looked up sharply. I don't know who I am without my mind. You're still sacred, she said. And then something cracked. Not loudly, but inwardly, like a frozen river shifting beneath itself. Elias reached out, trembling, and touched one of the stone walls. It dissolved beneath his fingers, not from destruction but from understanding. The prison was never the walls. It was what he believed the walls meant. and above them, unseen to most, the eye closed, not from disinterest, but as if in blessing the moment of understanding. Laura's reflection. The tower behind her was now only a memory, its walls gone to dust and wind. Laura stood at the edge of a slow-moving river, silent, still, watching how it curved around the earth without resistance. Elias had not been dangerous. He had not been cruel. But he had been trapped. And that truth stirred something ancient within her. She sank to her knees, touched the river's surface, and whispered, "How many prisons have I named wisdom? How many chains have I called discipline?" The truth rippled back to her, not in words but in sensations. The tension in her jaw when she tried to be perfect. The rules she had carved into her skin like commandments. The fears she thought were virtues. She remembered carrying expectations for others like Carla. She remembered doubting her worth just as Thomas did. Now she saw how the bars of the mind are often gilded with praise or purpose or logic. And yet they hold. And the eye above her still watched with patience. Never speaking. Never demanding. She realized something. The watcher did not seek to free her. The watcher waited for her to free herself. And she did. Not all at once. But enough to stand again lighter, releasing another stone that weighed her down. She did not walk away from the river. She flowed from it one breath at a time. The woman at the edge of the fire line. Laura had not planned to walk this far, and yet the path drew her like a thread pulled through fabric. The terrain shifted, soot underfoot, trees blackened as if by some long-past fire. And at the edge of this burned-out field stood a woman alone, back turned, silhouetted against the gray hush of dusk. She held a bundle of charred paper in one hand. Her other hand was steady, too steady, like someone who had stopped trembling long ago but never stopped burning. Laura said nothing. The woman spoke first. "It didn't stop the fire. I thought if I wrote it all down I could stop it." She turned. Her name was Naomi. Naomi's story, the weight of unspoken truth. Naomi had lived in a place where silence was praised, where being strong meant never naming the storm inside you. She had learned to smile while sinking, learned to help others build their homes while hers quietly burned. Each page in her bundle held words she never said aloud. Grief, rage, loneliness. "I wrote to remember," Naomi told Laura, eyes rimmed in ash. "But I also wrote to survive what no one would let me say." Then one day something inside her caught fire. Not destruction but awakening. She spoke the truth and the silence around her cracked. She named the cost of holding everything in. And everything around her changed. Relationships, roles, even her reflection. But the world called her dramatic. Bitter. So she walked. She carried her burnt papers into the wilderness. And now she stood at its edge, unsure if crossing it again meant returning to silence, or forging a life where truth could breathe. Laura stepped closer. The eye was present again, above, behind, within. "Do you want to forget?" Laura asked. Naomi shook her head. "I want to begin." Laura opened her hand, palm upward. She held no answers, no broken compass, only a gesture of presence. Naomi didn't take it, but she stood closer. And together they faced the field. Not to turn back. Not to walk away. But to choose a new direction, together or apart, with nothing unspoken between them. And the eye saw it all. Not judgment. Not salvation. Just a witnessing so deep, it changed what it observed. The fire was long gone, but its memory clung to the trees. Ash softened the ground beneath her steps. She walked with nothing but the charred bundle of paper pressed to her chest. At first she walked to get away. Then she walked to move forward. Now she walked because the silence had changed. It no longer tried to drown her. It listened. She found herself near a cliffside overlooking a vast, unmoving lake, dark as ink, clear as glass. She sat, carefully, and unwrapped the burned pages, and laid them out one by one on a patch of sun-warmed stone. Each fragment held pieces of her voice. I was told I was too much. I learned to shrink. I said yes when I meant no. I was afraid to love loudly. I screamed into pillows because no one else would listen. She did not cry. Not this time. She read each line aloud. And the act of reading became an invocation, like drawing pieces of herself back into the present. She felt it before she saw it. The eye. Its reflection shimmered faintly in the still water. Not in the sky, not in the distance, but here, close. Not judging and not instructing. Simply present. For the first time, Naomi did not feel watched. She felt witnessed. And she spoke, not to the eye, not to the lake, but to the part of herself that had always listened in silence. I am not broken because I burned. I burned because no one let me speak. And now I do. He does not return, she builds. Naomi did not return to the world that had silenced her. She found a clearing near the lake where the earth was dark and soft. She planted the burnt pages one by one into the soil, not to bury them but to root them. From each something grew. Not flowers. Not trees. But flame-colored leaves. A new kind of forest. Not a forest of forgetting but of truth remembered. And those who wander into it will feel something in the air. A courage they can't name. A warmth that doesn't burn. And somewhere deep in its center, Naomi tends the grove, no longer silent. The visitor, the man with the polished shoes. Naomi heard the footsteps before she saw him, measured, too careful. Like someone trying not to seem out of place. But in the forest of flame-colored leaves, every footfall was an echo of intention. He emerged slowly, older now but not softened. He wore polished shoes, the kind that never touched real ground unless necessary. His coat was expensive. His voice, when he finally spoke, still held that low authority she knew too well. Naomi. She didn't move. She remained seated on the ground, tending to the soil around one of the trees growing from her burnt pages. I didn't expect you to come, she said without looking up. He hesitated. I read about this place. They said it was yours. No, she replied calmly. It belongs to anyone who was ever told to be silent. The wind moved. The eye above the grove opened slightly, hidden behind clouds but watching. He was once her teacher. Not in a classroom but in life. A mentor. A guide. A voice she once trusted. He had praised her ambition but warned her about being too vocal. He had encouraged her talent but said her anger made others uncomfortable. He had framed his control as care. And when she finally spoke her pain, he had dismissed it as a misunderstanding. Now he stood beneath the trees grown from the very words he once told her to swallow. He looked around and said too carefully, "You've built something powerful." Naomi finally looked up. Her gaze was steady, not bitter. "I didn't build it for you." He knelt, not to plead but because something in the air demanded honesty. "I told myself I was protecting you, that I knew better. I didn't want you to be hurt." Naomi tilted her head. "You were hurt." He closed his eyes. "Let that truth land." "I came to apologize," he said finally. Naomi stood. "Not towering, rooted." "Then say it." "Not for me. For the soil." He looked at the ground. At the burned, buried fragments now sprouting into leaves. He whispered, "I silenced what scared me, and called it guidance. I am sorry." The wind passed gently. A single leaf drifted from one of the trees and landed at his feet. Not forgiveness. Not condemnation. An invitation to begin again, but on different soil. Naomi turns away. She did not offer comfort. She did not offer absolution. She turned and returned to her work. Planting, tending, breathing. The grove did not need him. But it did not reject him either. The choice now was his. Behind him the path remained open. Ahead the forest waited, with flame-colored truth and the silence that reveals. And above the eye did not blink. The echo of other voices. Dusk was deep now, folding shadows into long listening shapes. The forest around her quieted, not from peace but anticipation. Laura stood still. And then she heard it. Soft at first like wind brushing stone. But then clearer. Voices. Familiar. Unfamiliar. Not ghosts. Not hallucinations. Echoes. But fragments of other voices. If I stop performing, will they still love me? Carla, alone in her childhood bedroom, holding a dress she never chose. Maybe if I'm quiet enough, no one will realize I don't belong. Thomas was tying the same tie for the third time. I've mastered the puzzle, but I forgot why I started it. Elias, his hand trembling over a diagram he could no longer interpret. If I name the fire, will it consume me or free me? Naomi, pen to paper, the room around her too quiet to bear. Laura listened. These were not memories. They were echoes, remnants that the watcher had kept safe, waiting for someone to hear them without turning away. And now they belonged to Laura too, not as burdens but as threads that bound them together. She knelt beside a small moss-covered stone and whispered her echo. I wanted to be good. But I forgot to ask what good meant to me. And in that moment one more voice was added to the chorus. The eye unseen did not blink. It simply listened. As it always had. The forest had grown quiet again, but the air still shimmered with remembered words. Laura remained still, eyes closed, waiting for the echo that tugged deepest at her soul. It came. Maybe if I'm quiet enough, no one will realize I don't belong. Thomas's voice. Fragile. Private. A truth spoken only to himself. Laura opened her eyes. The wind shifted and the trees leaned ever so slightly, not backward but downward toward the earth. And then she saw it. Gnarled roots curling around what appeared to be a door, half sunken into the soil. Not a grand door. Small. Humble. The kind of door someone builds not to invite but to hide. Laura reached out, brushing moss aside. The door opened without sound. She stepped inside. It was neither a cave nor a room but a hollowed memory shaped into space. Dim and gray. The air carried the smell of old paper and cool stone. In the center of the room, a bench. And on the bench sat a coat, carefully folded, never worn. On the wall, mirrors. Some broken, some warped, none whole. And words. Words scrawled everywhere. Not in ink but in thought. As if the very walls were saturated with inner monologue. Don't speak. They'll laugh. You're not smart enough to be here. You must earn your right to exist. If they knew the real you. Laura stood in the middle of it all, unmoved by fear but heavy with recognition. This was not Thomas's prison alone. This was a place many had built and visited. Including her. She sat on the bench. The coat beside her shifted slightly as if sighing. She speaks to the room. Laura whispered as if speaking to the mirrors or herself through them. Belonging was never something to earn. It is something you remember. The mirrors flickered. Not shattered but softened. The harsh edges were rounded. Some fog lifted. A quiet presence entered the space. Not the eye this time but something left behind by Thomas. A warmth. A breath of what might come after self-doubt. Laura closed her eyes and placed her hand on the coat. You are allowed to be. You are not a mistake. You do not have to earn what you already are. The room changes. The roots above creaked softly and light filtered in, not much but enough to cast long, dappled shadows. The mirrors no longer spoke. The walls no longer bled shame. And Laura, she stood again. Not untouched, but more whole. Behind her the door remained open for others. And above the forest the eye blinked once. Not as a warning. Not as a test. But as if it too felt the room lighten. Laura's dream. The room of unspoken selves. She slept beneath the roots, her back against the softened earth, one hand resting where Thomas's coat had been. No dreams came at first. Only darkness. Not frightening, just vast. Then slowly the dream began to unfold. She was in a vast, circular chamber with no ceiling. The stars above spun slowly like pages turning. Around her were doors, hundreds of them. Some narrow, some tall, some beautiful, some rusted. And from each door, a version of herself emerged. One wore a scholar's robe, eyes tired but determined. Another stood barefoot, paint-smeared, humming to herself with joy. One held a lantern, weeping silently. Another stood proud in armor, scarred but unbowed. Or one clung to a child's ribbon. One crouched in shadow, hiding from all the others. Laura didn't speak. She looked. And they looked back. Each version was real. Each version had once guided her, shaped her, silenced her, or saved her. But none were the whole. At the center of the chamber, a pool of still water reflected not one face, but all of them layered at once, like truth unfolding through time. Then came a voice, not loud, not male or female, but echoing deep. You are not the mask you wore to survive. You are not only the choices you regret. You are the echo of everything you've endured. And the silence between what you have yet to become. The wind stirred the stars above. One by one the voices began to step backward into their doors. Not vanishing but resting. Laura was alone again. But not empty. She walked toward the pool. And as she touched the water she saw her face. Not a mask, not a version. Just her in stillness. The eye opened in the sky above. Not watching her. Reflecting her. She opened her eyes slowly beneath the roots. The forest was quiet. The coat was gone. The earth no longer pressed her. It cradled her. And though nothing around her had moved, something within her had shifted entirely. He did not need to rush. He did not need to prove. She rose and walked, not away but forward. Laura crossed into a meadow filled with stillness so deep it almost hummed. The air was thick with dew, though no mist clung to the grass. The sun filtered through tall reeds like memory through time. In the center stood a man with a long, simple coat, weathered by sun and solitude. He stood at a stone table, gently etching something into its surface. A name. Only part of it remained legible. Al. He didn't turn as Laura approached. He only said, "Another name is leaving me." His voice was gentle but brittle. His name was Micah. He had once known the names of everyone he loved. Not just their spoken names but the secret names behind their eyes. The way his mother used to hum off-key when folding laundry, the way his friend laughed when nervous but called it coughing, the way his brother used to run toward rainstorms with his arms open. But time had taken many things. And grief had not come like a flood. It came like wind, slow and constant, wearing down the stone until the names began to fade. "I thought if I remembered hard enough," Micah said softly, still tracing the half-carved name, "they wouldn't be gone." Then Micah asked something unexpected. "Do you remember anyone you were supposed to forget?" Laura thought of her hidden names. Versions of herself, places, and people she let fall away for the sake of survival. "Yes," she whispered. "But sometimes forgetting was the only way I could keep going." Micah nodded. He finally turned to her. His eyes were kind, hollowed by time but not by bitterness. "Then help me remember differently." Together they begin again. They didn't carve new names into the stone. They sat together and spoke them aloud. And though no magic kept them from fading again, something shifted in the telling. Because sometimes memory is not in the mind. It is in the sharing. And the eye above them watched, not to preserve but to honor. Each name spoken was a moment of light. And that was enough. Micah walked with Laura now, not as a guide, not as a burden, but as one who remembers what must not be forgotten. Micah walks beside Laura. They left the stone table behind. Not abandoned, but entrusted to the wind and the eye. The meadow narrowed into a winding trail that curved between hills stitched with wildflowers, silent except for the soft crunch of earth beneath their steps. Micah did not speak much at first. Laura did not press. They walked as those who had lost different things but understood the shape of grief in one another's silence. Then Micah said, Every time I remember it feels like I lose it again. But walking, it's different. Movement doesn't erase. It makes room. Laura nodded. She understood now what Ivy had meant. Each soul carried a piece of the journey she needed to face. They reach a fork in the path. The path split. One trail led down into a thicket of bramble and vine. The air there felt heavy with memory, not pain but depth. The other trail was brighter, lined with golden stone, wide and inviting. It pulsed with the rhythm of 1,000 footsteps. Those who chose ease escape forgetting. Micah looked at Laura. You already know where I need to go, he said. Laura looked toward the brambles. You're going into memory. Micah gave a sad smile. If I walk through it, maybe I'll stop fearing it. Laura stepped forward beside him. Then I'll walk with you. Until the next echo calls me elsewhere. They took the narrow path side by side. And as they walked, Micah began to speak. Not stories but fragments. Names. Laughter. Questions he never got to ask. Each one a step. And Laura listened without interrupting, without interpreting. Above them the eye blinked softly. Almost tenderly. Laura and Micah, whose steps have grown slower not from weariness, but because they've begun to feel the shift in the air. They are approaching the edge of a place not marked on any map. Laura and Micah. Arrival at the grove. The bramble path had been thick with memory, but as they pressed forward, the thorns softened. The air changed. It smelled like smoke but not danger. Like warmth. Like something burned long ago but not lost. Then they saw it. The trees were unlike any forest Micah had ever known. Leaves the color of flame, bark etched with delicate patterns that pulsed faintly with words. Not bark runes, not carvings. Names. Sentences. Truths. Micah paused. This place feels like someone found a way to keep grief alive but not in pain. Laura stepped ahead, her voice barely above a whisper. This is Naomi's grove. Micah looked at her, surprised. You know the one who made this? I walked with her once, Laura said. Before she remembered her fire. The forest of spoken silence. They entered the grove carefully. Every step they took awakened something in the trees. Leaves rustled not in the wind but in memory. Some fluttered low as if bowing. Others lifted high as if reaching for unseen stars. Laura touched a tree. Its trunk warmed beneath her hand. A phrase rose softly. I didn't speak to be right. I spoke so I wouldn't disappear. Micah stood in awe. This is what I feared, forgetting. But she turned memory into something that breathes. They wandered deeper until they saw her, Naomi, kneeling beneath one of the trees, planting a small piece of paper into the soil. She looked up, unsurprised. I knew you'd both come. The grove remembers who listens. 3 at the root. Naomi rose and walked to them, not as a keeper or guardian but as one who had stayed. Laura didn't speak. She placed her hand on Naomi's shoulder in a quiet greeting. The flame leaves shifted above them. Micah stood before Naomi, neither nervous nor reverent. I've carried so many names I thought I'd lose. But you grew yours into something. Naomi offered him a slip of ash-gray paper. Like, plant one. Micah hesitated, then took it. He knelt, pressed the paper gently into the earth and whispered a name, not out loud but inwardly. And a sapling began to grow. Slowly. Gently. And the grove accepted it. The watcher watches. Above them, high above the flame-colored canopy, the eye opened. Not large. Not blazing. Just present. It did not guide. It did not question. It simply saw. And in being seen, the 3 beneath the trees felt no fear. Only the comfort of embrace. The grove has rooted something in all 3 of them, Naomi, Micah and Laura. But Laura's path is not yet finished. There is still one echo she has not followed. Not the echo of others' expectations like Carla. Not the echo of self-doubt like Thomas. Not the echo of mental prisons or silenced fire or the fear of forgetting. This echo is older. Quieter. Hidden so deep it nearly dissolved. I wanted to be good. But I forgot to ask what good meant to me. The echo beneath the echo. As they stood beneath the flame-colored trees, the wind shifted just slightly. The leaves whispered, then hushed. Laura turned almost without thinking. There's something else. A voice I haven't followed. Naomi and Micah both felt the same way. Not their echo but hers. Naomi offered a satchel of dried flame leaves and said, "For when the ground forgets your steps." Micah placed his hand on Laura's shoulder. "We carry the ones we listen to." And Laura nodded, then stepped beyond the grove, alone but not lonely.
I know you have yet to feel the tender weight of that watchful gaze. But when it finds you, do not fear. It is not a force of judgment, but a gentle call to awaken your inner light. Let its presence remind you that every truth, once shared, becomes a guide, lifting the shadows and connecting us all in a journey of hope. Embrace it, and you will discover that even the most minor witness can reveal the vast beauty of our shared destiny.